The bottom one, too, other school-based activities. The bottom one, it says district schools shall provide adequate space as defined by the district for eating, serving school meals.
Can we go back?
Sure.
Physical activity shall not be used or withheld solely as a form of punishment.
Oh, yeah, check that one.
Isn't that a state law, actually?
They used to allow for people to, like in third grade, you're in trouble, you don't get outside recess.
Yeah.
They used to be able to do that, but that's not the way it is
My
anymore.
son had to deal with that last year.
Check that.
The whole
Right.
school was like, everything you do, you got no recess.
Correct.
And I was like,
Well, I think that's probably why it wasn't checked, like when it was brought, because they were concerned about would recess be allowed? You know what I mean? Would they be allowed? They don't have consequences like the same, like they don't have in-school suspension teachers and things. That may have been why they didn't want that one checked originally.
well, it was literally like any infraction, like talking in the hallway, you missed recess.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys can't do that. Like I actually said something to Mr. Miller. I'm like, it's a law. Like you can't take away.
Correct.
Like what are you talking about? Oh well, they have the option to walk. I'm like, okay, that's how we get around it. Meanwhile, they're not allowed to walk. They have to sit in this one spot. So all right. Anyway, where are we at now?
Page 7.
Like this whole thing, like most of these seem like kind of like very standard. Like the first, clean and safe meal environment. I mean,
Check that one.
I mean, how can you not? I mean, I feel like it's not in our policy to provide a clean and safe meal environment. What?
Yeah.
Am I missing that?
It's kind of by default. It should be
Right? Like-
safe. Yeah.
Like I feel like we check the box and say that's our policy, and we don't really think about it because it just is.
Because it just is.
It is.
Yeah.
Some of this is common sense.
Right. We have to give them time to eat. That's also a requirement. Like, like this is, I can't believe these are in here. Like, the students should have access to wash their hands. Do we provide nutrition content?
Which one?
Nutrition content?
Yeah, that's available. Yes, we do. Alonzo does that.
Any others in there, Rob?
Just looking to see if that goes. Yeah, the district shall maintain a healthy school environment. Should be checked. It's just some of this is common sense. On page 8, going into 9, there was some discussion on this among our administrative team. And again, you guys can choose to do what you want with this, but under rewards and incentives, we decided the best answer would be C, which is the blank one, and to write in foods and incentives may be used at the discretion of the building principal. And the reason why is it looks different at different age groups on how like that's all. That's the reason why they ask for administrative prerogative on those two things.
Teachers do that though.
What's that?
Like teachers do give a lot of them give out.
They ask for administrative
little,
prerogative on
like,
this. Yeah, that's why they
snacky.
want that like they don't want to be regulating every little thing that they want the prerogative to make their building safe, and as healthy as they can, without going overboard,
I was wondering if they had classroom parties.
Yeah, so
That was the other one that's inconsistent too. I mean,
they thought D would be appropriate for that. When you go down to classroom parties, shall offer a minimum amount of foods. They thought
see,
that-
that's another one that's like, I've heard they're not allowed, and then I've heard other teachers allow kids to bring stuff in.
Yeah, they thought collectively, and they're aware of that, and so they thought collectively D would be
I mean, I don't,
appropriate.
I have no problem with it. I just
Yeah.
don't want it to be disruptive, but
Yeah.
They still do it at the high schools sometimes.
is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean-
like, especially the language classes.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to bring in something that's
French or
French
Mexican.
or Mexican, whatever. So that is still an option at the high school level.
I mean, I just know for my own kids, like it depended.
Yeah, I know
really,
they kind of
it
put
really
the
depended
kibosh
on
on
the
it
teacher.
at
Like
the
one
elementary
year they were
level.
told they weren't allowed to have it,
Right.
and
It
then
usually depends according to what allergies are in your classroom. too.
that could be too.
The years that I don't have allergies, we eat a lot more food than the years that we
Yeah,
have
right.
allergies. It's
And they might not call it out
and we don't,
in the class.
We don't
Yeah.
say that's why.
Yeah,
It's
no, I
just
know.
the way it is that year.
I understand. And then so the parents might not be quite aware
Well,
of
they kind of
what the
get it at
problems
this
are.
point. I mean, all I say is that I'm keeping everyone in the room safe.
Mm.
So if we don't have any allergies, I mean,
Yeah.
So we're going with D on parties,
yeah.
and C. What was the write-in?
C was at the top you're talking about?
Yeah.
Foods and incentives may be used at the discretion of the building principal. Basically, the building principal has knowledge of the allergies of the kids, and they tell the teachers, obviously, if the kid has there's certain things they need to be aware of, along with the nurses. So it gives them a little bit of latitude, depending, because the age groups are pretty defined now in our school district, obviously with K2, 3, 4, 5. So they really thought that would be the best approach.
All right. Anything else on that page? Shared classroom snacks.
I mean, they thought, again, B would be the best one. May only be used with the administrative discretion. It may be something to that effect.
So this is the teacher sharing snacks with the students.
No, I think it's like kids. I think that's what they were
Sharing
talking-
lunch snacks.
that type of thing. Yes.
Like at snack time, the kids bring a lunch. They bring a snack.
Yeah.
It's
and-
basically they're allowed to share it.
Yeah.
See, I feel like I don't know. That seems like how's that going to get regulated?
Yeah. I think that was kind of where they were going
I
from.
mean, I think I'm for it, but
Mm-hmm.
like there is that issue with allergies and I don't know. I guess you'd have to say. So it's basically under supervision and approval by the teacher.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Anything on the next page?
We have nothing on page 10 that we were. No, I don't know if you guys are comfortable in checking any of the safe routes to school.
How'd you get in?
I've been talking to Scott. He got me in.
He reset you?
Yeah.
He just did the same thing for me.
Oh, you guys! Tell him to do the same thing for.
But I still can access email.
Tell him to do the same thing for Jeff Scott.
Or Ellen.
Tell him I can't talk.
I mean,
Do we need to check anything under safe routes? What does that have to do with wellness? I guess. Yeah, it's just safety. But
I don't know. The first one is pretty.
Yeah,
To the extent
But
possible.
that's already,
should improve.
but you don't need to codify it. Got it.
I would assume that we do that. It doesn't matter.
This is like safe biking routes or walking routes?
Yeah.
That's what it says, yeah, it says, to the extent possible.
Like as soon as you write to an extent possible, you're basically saying,
Yeah.
Right, it's
you're
saying
basically, it's
that's-
basically not a policy. It's just
It's
basically
just-
like whatever you want to do.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't even understand like the language in that, but whatever. Which is it? Did you guys want to check one?
We didn't check any of those, so we
You guys have a
kinda like-
you guys have a preference?
Yeah, I mean, they all seem pretty
Pretty.
straightforward. I mean, district shall cooperate with local municipalities, yeah,
With local what?
municipalities.
Oh. I thought you said misspellings.
No, municipality, public safety, police. I think that's something that we want to do.
And we kind of do that, like we talk to them, we have MOUs with them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, kind of do that, so.
So number
It's
two.
not gonna hurt us to put that one
Number
down.
2.
Yeah, you can do two, but we kind of do that. We have MOUs with it. You don't think that forces us to build stuff like sidewalks or anything, do you? Okay.
No, you just add to the extent of it and everything. You were good to go.
And it means nothing.
It just basically doesn't mean anything. It just sounds good. All right. So sick leave we have to talk about in executive session.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I said okay.
Oh. I said hey.
Yeah.
I'm like, who knows who you talk to? All right. So we'll hold that one off. I got to remind myself. Actually, I'm just going to pull this out so I don't forget. That little puppy right there. Leave that open. All right. New business. Is everybody now in?
No, I'm not,
Except for me?
no. It's like the icon.
I know my password too, so it didn't let me in, so I don't know what's going on.
That's not your problem, that was our problem.
And it
That
didn't,
was our.
You too?
Yeah, I got.
because it wasn't even saying I had the wrong password, it just wouldn't do anything.
Right, that's,
Oh,
I'm just saying.
I don't know. Did you guys hit play again?
I did.
All right.
I'm just gonna tell you a story, but I don't know.
But maybe perhaps another time.
Perhaps.
All right. New business. Is everyone who needs access have access to these?
I printed out, I think, the first two.
So this one is, it was an existing policy, but it's been basically blended into one more concise version. So everything in this is new, newly from the PSBA. I mean, it's basically just FMLA regulations. There's really not much to discuss on this, in my opinion, but
Okay.
I mean, just the first line, it's board shall provide eligible administrative, professional, and sport employees with unpaid leave of absence in accordance with the FMLA, here and after referred to as FMLA, in accordance to state, it's all regulatory, so there's nothing.
Yeah, I thought I saw one, I was reading that through minutes, and at one point that, I think they were meant to, it was vacation, but she didn't have any vacation, so she was taking leave and it wasn't covered by FMLA.
Yeah, usually those items, I
think we
mean,
combine,
in my experience with those, it's usually like a misunderstanding and then it gets fixed. Like somebody's told they have to use
well, yeah, I think we're conflating
PTO or
vacation
whatever.
versus
Yeah,
FMLA.
and then they're, it's like, oh, it was FMLA, and then it gets fixed. Because that's not one of those ones where you don't have a lot of leeway there. You can't interpret. It's like it's either FMLA or it isn't. Are we good with moving this on?
Yes.
Thank you, Julia, for a verbal response.
We shook our head.
Yes.
Huh?
We shook our head.
The recorder doesn't pick that one up.
I'll do it louder.
Shake your head harder, maybe they'll hear it. All right. Anywho, this is a new policy. Another one of these, like, why do we have it? Have you seen this one? It's basically like we'll give people vacation who are supposed to get vacation. It's the 12-month employees are provided with vacation.
Fair policy.
I guess we need it, but I just doesn't. Any issues with this one?
No.
That's the last one I printed out.
You printed this one out? Why'd you do that? You wasted, waste of paper.
I was going to print them all out.
You should have printed them all but that one. Sabbatical leave. This is always an interesting one. Quite a bit of updates on this. Steve, how much sabbatical leave do we asked for in a year typically?
We weren't asked these last 2 to 3 years. I can't remember any of the last 2 to 3. It's been a while since we've been asked for a sabbatical. And I can recall, and I can double check that for you.
And I guess, what's the difference between this and like short or long-term disability? It's that they don't actually have that benefit, so this is in lieu of. Is that a true statement?
Sabbatical?
Yeah, like you don't
That's for
have
the purpose
you don't
of
have like the
education.
typically defined or for getting back to health. It's also health related.
Yeah, it's sabbatical leave,
So
restoration.
the teachers
Well,
don't get
Disability.
disability, right? So that's what this is
I guess, I never knew it was for medical.
it can be for both. It can be for. I mean, this says it's at the discretion of the board whether to give someone sabbatical.
It seems like it's primarily for restoration of health.
That's what it says,
Or
yeah.
other purposes.
Used to be graduation.
Which to me seems odd. It says in the attachment though that it's also for continuing education, professional development. And then the only limitation really is we can't have more than 10% of the staff on sabbatical at one time. So,
It looks like, so am I right in reading the citations that sabbatical leave is required to be offered, even if no one's taken advantage of it in a long time, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
But I am using the whole first part of the policy that's talking about
it's,
for health.
well, then it says, it says, I think, in accordance to state law.
It references back to,
It says, yeah, for other purposes may be taken consistent with the law. And the law says it can be for other things.
I remember the one time I had to look it up myself in the law, like law books. Yeah, just because it's
that
rare.
frequent.
Yeah, and so I had to look it up. It's like, wow, they can still do this, because I thought they got rid of that, and I had to look it up in law books, and they can. And so that's my recollection of that. So that it's still a benefit that it's there now. They did change. They narrowed the scope. They used to be very broad and really easy to take.
Like basically if
the
some,
date that they amended it, the date that they amended the reg coincides with the creation of Family Medical Leave Act, state, the federal one. So I'm assuming, so like before that, it was like whatever rules existed in that, from when that rule was amended in 1953. So I assume a lot of people took sabbaticals.
I think they used to allow it for educational travel.
And,
I think
you know,
that's what they
yeah,
got
but
rid
then-
of. Now it's.
That's how I remember it. It
For
was like,
either
you
someone
go
getting
on-
a doctorate degree.
So it looks like
or
Europe
someone-
for a while.
It's
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
they changed the wording of it because
that's how
it
I
had to
remember.
comport with the federal law,
Yeah.
right?
The thing that does concern me though is the compensation. It just says they shall be compensated at least 1/2 of the salary. Like, at least 1/2,
Great point.
I mean,
We should find out what the law actually said. Actually, it's cited there, isn't it?
it is cited. Yeah.
It's the actual law.
It's exactly what it says. It's just quoting the law. It just says at least 1/2. And that was amended in 1986. So I guess the board would decide someone would get, at the very least we could do is they get half their salary.
Yeah, that's nice.
And if they wanted more, I guess they'd have to ask for it, but we don't have to grant it. I don't know, it just seems odd to leave it that vague, but at least it says it's half, so. I'm all right with the way it is. Anybody else have a concern about anything?
No.
No, it's just confusing. It says request for sabbatical leave shall be submitted on approved district form and forwarded with medical documentation to the superintendent or designee as soon as possible. Why would you do that if you're taking that sabbatical for education?
Yeah, I guess the question is, what do you do if it's not a medical?
Right.
You just get it's just granted? I mean, basically, we could say no to anything, unless it's, I mean, like, if someone says, I want to go to Europe for 6 months and learn new cultures, we have to let them? You know what I mean?
I had to reread the law, not the guy, so I got to read. It's so infrequent. I just got to. My
Well-
understanding was it was changed, and this I'm shooting from the hip here, Jeff. Was that it was?
No, I
used
mean,
to
I
be
feel like
very
this is a
liberal.
question from
Yeah,
consumers.
Yeah, it might be just to make sure we're. I think the intent of the law today is for health reasons.
Short-term.
Yeah, and potentially someone getting a doctorate when you do your thesis. There are some programs that, and that's changed a little bit even now, that require residency, and I think that was kind of the real intent behind it. But I'm speculating and shooting from the hip, guys. It's just used so infrequently. But I just know that was tightened up years ago. Yeah, so that needs to have supers take a look at that.
So how is this application submitted? If it's non-medical leave, what's the process? And then,
We have to approve. We have 5 years.
we can legally deny despite the EE qualifying.
Really confusing. I'm looking at the next policy and it's professional development.
Yeah.
covers some of the same stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Professional development leave.
Yeah.
All right.
Same requirements, 10 years.
Yeah, I know, isn't this funny? I should probably mention that too here. Then how is this different? It's dot one.
Yes.
Yeah, it references a different part of the same law,
Oh, wow.
state law, looks like. Or state regulation.
Well, then, except one's called sabbatical and the other one's called compensate professional leave.
Right.
So sabbatical is for medical, and this is the doctoral part I was talking about.
So why don't we just package these up?
You mean put them together?
We just, like, they should be called something different if you're gonna, like, don't call it sabbatical, call it
I call this one sabbatical, man.
medical sabbatical.
This is what I think of when I think of
Right?
sabbatical.
Like, call it
Yeah.
medical sabbatical, like, don't call
Yeah,
it
that's-
sabbatical.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
don't reference any other reason but medical, and then we have this other policy, dot one, which is basically everything else.
Yeah, yeah. Everything that's not health related.
Now, the interesting thing about this one, though, is that, are the eligibility requirements the same? Yeah, pretty much. And then it gets into how many credits you have to take, and so this is very much specific to education. I'm gonna just write, we'll hold off on dot one until Subaru's reviews. You guys okay with that? Hold off on this until, Mr. Hurley? Does that work for you?
Yep.
Like, just hold off on dot one until we get 38 clarified. I'm gonna put this in the legal review pile. All right. And then 339 is uncompensated leave. Okay.
It says here that requests for uncompensated leave shall be made on the district form to the superintendent. Do we actually have an official form?
We get requests for this. This is the policy, the one where people are taking vacations.
Yeah.
And that one that tends to upset some board members. So this is the one. And it
Yeah.
has the proposed language by PASPA is similar to our current language when you look at things like vacations.
And it says in here that like uncompensated vacations you can only do every 5th year and cannot be the day before or after a holiday, which I think was the big sticking point for some of the board members.
It also says
That it's not always honored that way.
it says that all applications have to be approved by the board.
Yeah, none of them went to the board was the big issue.
All applications for
They-
uncompensated
they-
leave require approval by the board.
Teachers had planned vacations and then we had snow days. It wasn't even holidays, it was, they assumed we're gonna stay off, the snow days got taken away and then people were already booked their flights and whatnot. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, it went to, we'll treat them as emergency personal days, right? And then it was, no, we're gonna make them unpaid. mean, do you know, like, what's the general guideline for, what are your?
Every 5th year, they're allowed, as it's currently written, and I don't have it right in front of me, but they're allowed to take request additional days, and so.
Well, they can only request it. It's not necessarily allowed. They can request it every 5th year.
What's that?
They can only request
it. Written here, yes.
But it says everything's got to be approved by the board.
But this is a new policy. Did we have a policy like this before?
This was here, this has been updated.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
This is the updated one that we already, okay.
This
Yeah.
is in bold, so yeah.
Got it,
that must be
okay.
New language.
Got it.
And
Yeah, so
you
that-
really want that?
Yeah, so before we did not have board approval required, is that what I'm seeing?
That's.
Yeah, like if someone's getting married and like
Yeah,
things
so-
like
I
that.
think that's
So
reasonable, someone's
if it
getting married.
Yeah, I mean, I
say
wouldn't
if
get-
you needed board
It's a life
approval
event.
before,
Yeah, I mean, that's
then
what that-
no one's
That's
been.
human, you know.
Or if someone has a child and they don't have enough days, like.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, I
But-
think that would be
But if
reasonable.
that bold
Cover it
language is
in the
new,
language.
that means that people haven't been doing things contrary to the rules yet. Is that correct?
We follow policy on that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, like, right now, it looks like we are deciding whether or not we're gonna add a requirement for board approval, because that wasn't there before, because it's in bold.
Well, it used to say the board must specify the conditions under which the uncompensated leave may be taken.
I see.
And I don't know that the board ever did any of that, right? It just kind of was administered, and I think everybody was okay with it until there was a couple of, I mean, since I've been here anyway, it's been isolated. Like, it's not like it's a big, a big issue.
Invasive. I mean, it's
No,
not
I
invasive.
think, but then we had, it was this year, it was an issue because there were a good number of teachers who planned stuff over days that were potentially snow givebacks.
I feel like there's a bit of a catch-22 there, is that if people live up to the guidelines 1, 2, and 3, and it's approved by the superintendent within those guidelines, I don't feel like the board has to approve them one by one. It's only when people don't follow these rules or request that that rules be bent for them. And so I want to request like a long vacation every 3rd year instead of every 5th year, and I want to
Well,
take the day.
he was keeping track of that even.
Well, in the past,
Right?
it looks like unfortunately it fell to the superintendent or the building principal in the past.
We do check. We do check
Yeah,
5
no, I
years,
know. And
it's
so
checked.
I'm just saying, if people live up to those rules, I don't feel like I have to approve every single one.
Sounds like that's the way it was written before.
And that's what I'm saying. But then the board, some people on the board got irritated when we were presented with this already happened, and what already happened didn't live up to the requirements in
This is
that
how you follow
policy.
the policy.
Right.
That's what's happening.
So it was already happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if people would follow the policy, I don't feel I have to okay every single step everybody takes. I don't know.
What's your thought on this? As an educator.
I say that as long as it's not being abused by the same people all the time.
What about the number of people or during the same period of time?
Oh, you mean like when,
Like
with this,
10% or-
and that happened
Well, like-
last year with when school was extended almost a week, and all of a sudden we have all these people that put in for, uncompensated leave days, the last 2 days of school, when, and I get that. But does that mean, I don't know, does that
I think this
mean-
year the issue was around Easter.
Oh, was it around Easter?
It was
Because
Easter
because
and
we
then-
we lost
And
that
the,
Easter holiday.
and the end,
That's
because we
right.
lost days around the holiday for snow.
Right, you're right.
And there were people that had their trips booked, and what rubbed people was, one, it was just like assumed that, oh well, I'm just going to use my sick time, and then it wasn't approved by anybody. It was just that's what we're doing, and then two, then it was switched to, oh well, you can't. The policy is you can't use sick time for vacation, right? It's very clear. So then it was, oh well, we'll use it as an emergency personal day. And that was when it was like, well, no, this isn't like, how can we figure out a way to, like, you shouldn't have booked a vacation during that week. Like, that you can't get out of. And then, and I mean, my wife's a teacher, I get it, like, I mean,
Yeah.
but it was, I think the issue was there was a good number of them, like it was a pretty significant number of people. And then, people got mad because they were told they had to take the days unpaid. And that was the issue, is that they didn't want to take them unpaid. That wasn't, like,
So
it's not
this
like,
is not-
this isn't like they wanted to take them unpaid. They were like, I want to get paid for these days and go on vacation.
Well, that,
And I was like,
And
do
that's-
I'd gladly
more
take an
cut and dry.
unpaid day to get.
you know what I
going,
mean,
you
right?
know? Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. I would, yeah.
I don't feel like I need to approve all these. Like
That's what I'm
I feel
saying.
like the superintendent,
Should have policy in
I-
place and have
the superintendent should approve them as they come in. If they want to, maybe we can get notification of them, but I don't. I guess my thing is,
I would be fine with changing it to require notification to the board. It needs to be on that list of personnel stuff.
because it says it goes to the board for approval upon recommendation of the superintendent. Because if I'm not mistaken, we have to approve all unpaid leave. Rob?
Yeah.
We do. So, but most of the time it's a formality, because
Right,
usually
I see what you're saying.
there's usually a policy stated, when you ever see them on the agenda, there's usually a policy stated
Yeah.
as to why they're taking it. I mean, my feeling is it's fine the way it is.
Okay. I
I just don't know who's administering it, like who's keeping track of.
Yeah. And Rob said they keep track in the administrative office, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I can't be, it's probably not easy to do.
If there are, and I would assume if there are people that,
It's a
you
pain?
know,
Yeah, I would imagine.
I would assume if there are people that run, that, you're concerned maybe abusing it, though, you're looking out for that, I would assume, yeah.
This policy is not going to cover what happened last year anyway. It says it's for educational, personal, which is marriage,
Or vacation,
every 5th year.
yeah. So,
So you can do it every 5th year.
but it's also saying you can take a vacation and take it unpaid. Our issue was people were trying to take it paid.
Yeah, that's no,
They didn't-
Yeah, that's true.
That, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think if they had just said, hey, I'm going to take it unpaid, everyone would have been like, okay, but it was trying to, like, the administrators, I think, kind of,
Last piece
We're like,
of
So
okay.
the issue wasn't,
It can't be before
Whether they
or
should have
after
it
the
unpaid.
holiday. It's written in here.
yeah, it says
I
that.
do like that, by the way, before or after, because that's
Wasn't that the case last year?
it's really hard. to
I
sum
don't-
it right around.
Well, it happened to be, it was around a holiday because it was the Easter break and we didn't get it.
Oh, actually, I guess we were taking away the holidays.
But, yeah, there were days that were scheduled to be off, but they were also labeled as, hey, if we have snow, these are the first days to go back. And people schedule.
well, in their defense, it's impossible to schedule a vacation.
I'm with
every
you.
year.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with it, because my wife's a teacher and it sucks because
You go away in July.
if you want, yeah, because you want to go, if
Yep.
you can only go around a holiday and then it's you're paying peak rates for everything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I guess by policy, like, we really wouldn't have approved last year. It was Good Friday, it was a holiday. People had off.
Technically, we shouldn't
And they
have.
had the Thursday.
Correct.
So they couldn't take it to Thursday even by this place.
Correct the Mundo. But the way it was scheduled was the days were off, so they weren't working. So they scheduled it basically rolling the dice that
Oh, I understand.
we wouldn't have the snow, and we did. And so how it should have been handled is, unfortunately, you're gonna have to take the days unpaid. But everybody that was
Gladly.
right.
said-
Me too. Right? I would have
That
been like
If
whatever.
that's what I heard from my place, I'd be like, sure, I get it.
I am okay with that, but this policy still wouldn't allow it. It was
Right.
a day before a holiday.
No, technically, but if they had, I don't know that we can say you can't schedule vacation. I think it's just not smart to do, but, I'm not here to tell someone how they should do their business. All right, one more of these, we'll get one more and then we'll hang it up.
I still don't
339.1.
have access. I've gone to my Wi-Fi. I still haven't been able to
This one was an existing policy, and as near as I can tell, there's nothing changed on it.
I didn't see anything told.
No,
unless
so that's the
mistake,
part I'm-
It's the same, right?
Well, it looks like they just blended some policies together.
I see, okay.
So that's the change, but they didn't really change anything in
Oh, I
it.
see, that they're referencing two older policies, 335 and 339.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
So-
connecting to the hotspot, but
But it's all the same, it's due to.
Correct. Yep.
All right,
I'm guessing if anything, they removed some language, it was unnecessary or redundant,
got it.
is my guess.
I see no, I don't see any issues.
No, this one was kind of cut and dry to me.
So we broke our perfect streak of getting through everything before our next meeting.
Well, we had a little, no, our IT issue, everybody was,
Issues.
our director of IT,
Come through.
he
We're sure you don't have anything else to do on
he
the
left,
weekends.
Well, see, things went too smoothly with the iPad, so didn't want to disappoint.
Didn't want to be batting 1,000 for the day.
Exactly.
It's not you're a rock star.
all right. Do I have a motion to move? We're gonna end the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.